The Bloodstone Chronicles, Book 1, A Darker Sun, by David Inkling. Chapter 22. Buzzing. When Josh has gone, Tom begins packing up to set off immediately, but Elisa wants to sit in the open and eat a little more. "We need to go," he says. "You know what Milowina said. We mustn't stay outside." Tom sees the silent plea in Elisa's eyes. "Just a little while," he says, and sits down on the rock next to Ned. They're eating more of Milowina's cookies, and it's a gentle comfort. It's so long since they've been able to quietly and simply enjoy food. Ned lies back and looks up at the sky, not keen for the moment to end, with no home to return to. Lying in the sun is a moment to rest, a moment to pretend that all is well. But even this moment of stolen tranquility ends, and its ending comes rather more unexpectedly than they could ever have imagined. They sit on the rocks, surrounded by grass cropped low by sheep, with patches of bracken here and there. And the shady patches of gorse are edged with clumps of wildflowers, daisies, creeping thistles, and the beautiful blue of the late summer harebells. As Elisa watches, a bee hums heavy and lazily into view. It dances a little around her, and then drifts off to the harebells. A second and third bee come along. The easy noise of their buzz is calm and relaxing as they approach her. They dance in low circles around her and then fly off. If this had all happened a few weeks before, they would have continued to enjoy the time. But nothing is normal in their lives anymore. What happens next reminds them of the strange world they now inhabit. A small group of about 20 bees approaches. They drift, buzzing a little more noisily with an acute pitch, and then they fly straight at their heads. They dart back and forth, so Elisa, Tom and Ned begin to become irritated. They swat at the bees to push them away, but the bees persist until Tom stands up. "What are they doing?" he says, brushing them away irritably, so that they move off and circle Ned and Elisa, who then jump to their feet and begin flicking their hands in the air. "Perhaps they like the sugar," Ned says. "My ma says that sweet things attract them." "Let's pack away and go," Tom says. But as they go to grab the food, pick up the bag, they hear a more alarming and feverish buzzing. Its sound is loud and angry, very angry, and persistent in fact. A torrent of buzzing comes from an enraged swarm, huge and rising up from the lower meadow. Up into the sky it rises, a vast swarm of bees rolling through the air with a frenzied humming. It starts to climb and is coming directly towards them. "These aren't Mrs. Beech's, surely," Elisa cries out, moving swiftly behind Tom. "There are far too many for a single hive. There are at least 10 hives there. They must all be leaving." "Quick, this way," Tom says. "Let's get out of their path and go back underground." Tom and Elisa tread quickly through the gorse and disappear into the open mouth of the tunnel. Then Ned follows. But the bees see and surround them. The swarm closes in and settles, forming a plug at the entrance of the tunnel and blocks their exit. They are forced to move rapidly deeper into the shade within the passage. The bees follow. They move en masse, humming loudly and finding their own way in together, like a single dark cloud, a vast drifting noise. "I thought they'd fly past," Ned says, as the bees buzz vibrantly in a cloud of movement that casts a shadow over the light entering the tunnel. But they're not coming in any further, Elisa says. Look. She's right. The bees drop down and settle. The swarm lands like a blanket thrown down, and they lie still or creep softly over each other, covering every surface. Soon they are still and silent, without a single buzz or the faintest hum. There must be tens of thousands massed around the whole mouth of the tunnel. Its walls, the ground, and its sides are a crawling carpet of bees, but they are as silent as the gorse outside. The bewildered children watch. Then a new and even more alarming sound comes to them from outside. They hear the familiar pounding of horses once more. The hooves beat a rapid tattoo on the ground with a muted throb. A number of riders this time, and they're approaching fast as they call out to each other.
Keep looking,
A gruff voice orders.
I'm sure I saw something. There was definitely something moving up on the rocks,
Says a whining voice. There's been sheep moving through here. Look, droppings. They're fresh.
No, it wasn't sheep, I'm sure,
Says the whiner.
Yeah, you're always seeing things we don't.
Says a third mocking voice. Too much drinking of that miller's ale, comes the first gruff voice.
Yeah, well, he don't have no need of it after kicking on the end of that rope, do he?
The children are too stunned to breathe. They wait in shocked silence and stare at each other. They must mean Sam Fest. It is clear that the miller is dead. They know him from the Ridge Mill. His ale is popular with many of the folk of the valleys, and he sells it in barrels that even make their way to Stonemouth and overseas. The only other miller nearby is Peter Toogood, and coming from a purist group, he refuses to brew ale. Poor Sam, Elisa whispers, and closes her eyes gently. Ned looks at Tom, and no one moves. The bees are silent too, but crawl in frantic circles as if anticipating some sudden action, as if they are ready to surge forth and surround the horses or attack the men.
Look over there,
A voice calls out. A slight hum of tension rises in the swarm, and the shimmer of action passes in waves through the mass of bodies. They flick their abdomens in a synchronized wave, alert to the threat from outside and ready to respond as one. They move faster, prepare themselves for the massed attack. An animal cries out.
I told you it was just sheep, says the mocking voice.
Right, let's move off, says the gruff. In another moment, they hear the men shout as they spur their horses and depart with bitter words at their wasted time. The horses' feet beat their muted drumming until it becomes faint and then silent. Even when all they can hear is the soft, calm humming from the nearby bees, it is another minute into their relief before they breathe freely and Tom dares to speak. Let's go, he says in the softest voice. We can't go outside again. Not for a long while. They turn quietly, and as they do so, the bees rise up with a gentle and reassuring hum as they reform once more into a large swarm that moves slowly out of the tunnel and drifts away into the open countryside. They knew didn't they? Ned says. The bees forced us off the hill and into here, don't you think? Tom and Elisa look at each other. Neither says anything, but each quietly agrees that Ned is right. Mrs. Beech's bees have saved them from the riders. They step past the door, and then together the three of them work carefully to push the heavy door closed until the daylight disappears. It is dense darkness, pitch black after being on the bright hillside. "Oh, thank goodness for that," Ned whispers when the pale gleam of Tom's stone lights up the passage. It takes a little longer to lift the wooden beam and place it carefully back in the brackets that bar any entry. Even with Ned, they struggle and are relieved once it is lowered into place. The heavy thud of the wood into the steel brace is most reassuring. "So what do we do in here?" Ned asks. "We make our way along this line, past the Giant's Head and up to the northern hills. There are caves there where we can rest, get some sleep, and think about what to do next, when we've got our breath back." Ned studies the map as they walk. "So this really goes all the way to the hills, up by here," he says, pointing at the rough line on the map. "And all these are tunnels?" "Yes," Tom says, "but we've already been along this line here. It's easier walking back, knowing what is at the other end, and the path has a good downward incline, so they make good progress. The tunnel is smooth, and it feels good to be moving in a clear direction, safe and with a purpose. It's a simple thing, but it helps them feel as if they're achieving something. The steady movement of simply putting one foot in front of the other calms them, and it helps." Elisa thinks about the last image of Milowina's face. What must she have been thinking when she sealed them into the tunnel? What terrible fate was waiting beyond the tunnels when she so mysteriously closed up their exit? She's anxious about her parents too, locked up who knows where, facing the worst of possible outcomes. And now she is stuck underground, not knowing what will come next. And yet, in all of this, she discovers she suddenly feels easy, feels safe. She is not alone. And as she sees Tom and Ned walking a few steps ahead, she is thankful. As she listens to their feet falling and they make their way forward into the dimly glowing passage, a faint and distant clicking comes to her. She hears its subtle tickling, the rustling noise of something heavy sliding and shifting. And then she recognizes the sound of more buzzing, more bees, underground. They pause, listen as if expecting the swarm to flood the tunnel once more. Ahead of them in the darkness, there is a feverish movement, and the sounds grow in strength. Strange and powerful, the humming seems different, perplexing with its clicking and rustling, like a million sticks snapping or something being dragged through dried leaves on an autumn walk. The clicking grows louder, to resemble pebbles knocking, sliding in the backwash of a wave, flowing together, followed by a deep, low trembling. A rumbling hum follows, and then the sounds of feverish rolling and scuttling. The scuttling intensifies, and there is a great low humming too, but deeper in tone, much deeper than the sound of bees. They stare ahead, unsure of the strange noises. "What is it?" Elisa asks. Tom stands still, listens. He half turns his head, strains to understand the vague rattling, the whirring hums, and then in the midst of it, there is a new sound. Faint sounds come to him, as if 1,000 seeds have popped one after the other in a cascading burst. And then it is gone. In a few seconds, the noises peter out, and all they can hear is the dull emptiness of the space before them. Silence. "What was that?" Ned says. It sounded like bees, but worse with all that echoing in the tunnel. When the silence has folded its arms around them, and they are surrounded and assured there is nothing up ahead, they move cautiously forward. Tom finds the place on the map. "We're around here, Ned," he says, "and wait till you see what's around the next bend." Tom's tone is lighter, and it lifts his mood. They turn into the bend and approach the place where they'd passed beneath the Picardy tree. "It's the most amazing thing," Tom starts to say. "What?" says Ned, as he sees Tom's face drop. Ned stops and stares ahead at a long stretch of empty tunnel. "What am I looking at?" The tunnel is not exactly bare, for there are still a few shoots and roots, but they are grey now, dull and blackened. "What am I supposed to be looking at?" Ned asks and looks at Elisa. She is equally lost for words, and her mouth hangs open. Every single red stone that had hung from the Picardy tree and filled the tunnel with a great bank of shining red light has disappeared. The tunnel is empty. "It's all gone," Tom says. "How? Where are they?" Elisa adds, and her voice drops in dismay. Tom steps forward. He cannot believe there is nothing physically there. Where the great beach of red stones had been piled up, there is now only the forlorn emptiness of the echoey tunnel. "What?" Ned says. "What is it?" As Tom and Elisa stand in shock and survey the loss of what had been so great a vision for them, Ned looks at the map for an answer. "Oh, I see. If we're here, then there'd be a tree above us, is that it? The big old oak tree in the field, Ellie?" "Yes," Elisa says. Sadness and irritation strangle thoughts and her voice dies. "And something was down here too?" Ned asks. "Yes," Tom says. "But they've all gone," Elisa says. "What? What's gone exactly?" Ned says. "A whole mountain of red bloodstones. Like this one, thousands of them," Tom says. His voice is solemn, as if he has lost it too, but he stares into the tunnel, looking on in disbelief. "What was it, though?" Ned says gently. "They shone here, brightly, brighter than tombstone even," Elisa says. "Vibrant, all gleaming and piled up, just there, growing they were, by silvery roots from the tree, just there when we came through before." "And now they're gone," Tom says, and he steps to the side of the tunnel. As he looks, he sees there are many boreholes, channels that pepper the walls around the tree. Tom walks closer and looks into the smaller borings. "There can't have fallen through these, surely. He pushes his head close, looks in, hoping to see the lost glimmer of a stone or something resting deep in the tunnel's walls. "What can you see?" Elisa says. "Nothing." "No, wait," he says. Then a moment later he adds, "There's something there." He peers in and tries to see it. Then there's a scuttling inside, and he pulls his head back instantly. "What is it?" Elisa says. She watches apprehensively, and out of the channel come two shining black feelers, then a metallic-looking head, and a domed body with 6 spidery legs. It is the most enormous insect she has ever seen, as big as her hand, a bright black shining beetle. It clicks slightly and perches on the edge of the channel as if studying them. Then it unfolds the shards of bright armor plating on its back and takes flight. Its bright green wings are luminous and appear from under its black shiny shell. They create a blur, a bristling hum as it lifts off. Flying past Tom, its heavy body dangles legs under the green buzz of its noisy wings. It hovers in front of his face for a brief moment before moving off down the tunnel and sagging heavily until it picks up speed and then flies off noisily into the darkness up ahead. "A beetle," Ned says. "Not just a beetle, an absolutely huge beetle," Tom says. "Do you think it's a coincidence? Do you think perhaps it did something to the tree, to the stones?" "One beetle," Ned says. "It would take thousands," Elisa says. "They can destroy a whole barn in time," Ned says. "Or is that termites? Anyway, it takes years. And why destroy a living tree? I thought they only ate rotting wood," Tom says. "I don't know, but look at the roots, Tom," Elisa says. They look up. "What about them?" Ned asks, still unable to appreciate the tree's stark transformation. "They were silvery and bright before," Elisa says. "Now look, it's as if the tree has died. The roots are dark and shriveled. They have aged suddenly, so the great column-like structures that had reached down into the tunnel are slim, spindly, and frail. They can easily walk through this section of the tunnel, now that the great tree is diminished. Perhaps it always happens like this," Tom said desperately. "Perhaps it's natural and will grow back." He reaches out and touches the nearest root, but it is dry and ancient. Then it cracks and breaks away in his hand, crumbles into a powdery mess. He draws his hand back and the root drops, falls to the ground and shatters. It is dead, brittle and dusty. He touches another piece and this too comes away in his hand. "Oh, Tom, don't," Elisa calls out. "But I don't understand," Tom says. "It was such a strong tree, so powerful, vibrant. I could feel the life in it. I can still feel it. The most glorious thing I have ever seen, actually. And it made me feel as if nothing else was important. As if everything was going to be all right. And it was right here all along. And we'd only just discovered it. And now it's gone. It makes no sense." "Oh, Tom, don't." He sits down on the ground beneath the tree and looks up. He does not want to move away. Ned stares at his friends, tries to understand their massive loss. But it's hard to imagine what can have filled such an empty tunnel, where the only remnant of a tree is the rotting roots that crumple when you touch them. "Something truly awful has happened," Elisa says, as she places a hand on Tom's shoulder. Then she looks down at him. I don't understand it either, but it hasn't totally gone. Look, Tom, she says. Look. He looks down, and there in his hands, his own bloodstone is still glowing. Within it there seem to be tiny, sparkling lights that swirl and move, undulating spots glistening in waves that grow in strength. It's as if he holds all that the tree was in his hand. The light helps him relax a little. It's the joy of looking into a crystal clear pool and seeing the abundance of life swimming in the edges of another world, something there, but out of his own realm. It is seen and knowable, but still other, a world he cannot finally enter into. They wait as he sits in silence and watch as Tom's mouth mutters silent words, and then his hands move slightly and he trembles as he holds the red bloodstone. It begins to shake, gains in strength as light moves into his hand. But he does not drop it. Tom places his other hand over it and closes his eyes. He holds it gently, safe in his palm, and the life in the light flows from the stone and into him, moves through him so that he also glows slightly. Inside he feels his heart burn with a strange heat, a current of fire that floods him so that his skin glows brighter and his head is lifted up. When he opens his eyes once more, they're bright and brim with tears. But he is no longer saddened. There is a calm, deep peace upon him. See, Elisa says, it is still here. The light is shining. Everything will be all right. You'll see. Tom blinks and gets to his feet. Then he draws a deep breath, closes his eyes once more, breathes out slowly with audible relief, and whispers the softest word. So. Elisa smiles. She feels her own relief from anxiety, which was delicately balanced in her heart too, and she feels Tom's words strengthen her. She knows its gentle blessing in the tears that come to her own eyes. So, she says, and hugs Tom. What now? Ned says, and looks on, perplexed. He has seen that something important has happened, but he feels a little lost, bewildered even, not really knowing what his friends have felt in that moment. He feels as if he has arrived at a feasting late. All the cake has gone before he has even seen it. But all that he has seen from Tom's bloodstone has convinced him that he's missed out on something quite wonderful, even spectacular. So not knowing anything else to say, he says, "Do we go on to the caves now then?" His friends both look at him and nod. "Come on then, let's go," Tom says and sniffs. "Which way?" asks Ned. "Follow the beetle," Tom says, and he strides off.